Alright guys, so this video is for my guy Demos. So last week I made a video detailing how I got my half marathon time down from about 1:30 to last year 1:19. Now, one of the first points that I highlighted as I laid out 5 tips, 5 things that I did that allowed me to make that big breakthrough was increasing my mileage. Now, if you follow me on Strava, you know that I run anywhere from 100 to 115 miles per week. I think I'm actually going to ramp up to 120 as we're getting into the meat of this marathon training season right now. However, it is not essential to run this extreme high levels of mileage if you are a recreational runner and you want to make breakthroughs in your racing. So for the first 2 to 3 years where I was really pushing it, running, getting my times down, having fun with it, I was running maybe 30 to 40 miles per week, and I saw breakthroughs every single year. I was able to run sub 40 in the 10K. I was able to run sub 130 in the half marathon just by consistently running and increasing the intensity of those runs. So in this video, I wanted to break down for you guys out there who might not be able to dedicate time to run high mileage every week, some strategies that I used when I was running lower mileage that allow me to still increase my running performance. So before we get into the 5 strategies here, if there's one word that I want you to remember, if there's one thing that I want you to remember to take away from this video, it is efficiency. Now, if you do not have a lot of time, even if you do have a lot of time, even me with running 100 miles a week, it's all about efficiency. As hobby joggers, as recreational runners who are not paid to exercise, we need to be as efficient as possible with our time. So whether you're running 22-mile long runs on the weekend or 10-mile long runs on the weekend, we're all operating within different constraints. And so for me, it's super key that I'm maximizing my time so that when I am running, I can get the most from each of those runs. So that's the frame for today. It's all about efficiency, no matter your mileage level. And with that, let us dive into the first strategy that I used to bring my times down without running high mileage. So the number one thing that you can do if you've been stuck at the same mileage level for a few years, even a few months, and you feel like you want to progress your times is increasing the intensity. Now, there's really only 2 levers that we can pull to get faster. One is increasing the volume of our training, so increasing the time we're spending training, or 2, increasing the speeds that we're running. And now both of those things are different levers of intensity. They're different frames to think about intensity, but for the purposes of today, thinking about how to get better without running high mileage, we need to be running faster. So I had a great conversation in the comments with my guy Lance Hare. Shout out Lance from West Virginia. And we were chatting through steady running, zone 3 running in that range where it's not slow enough to recover, but yeah, it's not as fast as our race paces. Now, a lot of people look down on that style of running, and there is certainly a time and a place for it. I don't want to run steady every day, but if you are running lower mileage levels, it can be beneficial to run a lot of your weekly mileage in that steady zone. So for me, going back to my training when I first started running and I was running 20 to 30 miles per week, I ran all of my miles at basically the fastest pace that I could sustain for those miles. At lower mileage levels, my body was able to recover more quickly between runs, and particularly if you're not injury prone, this can be a really helpful way to increase the intensity without increasing the time that you're spending running. Now, that's not to say every single run that you're doing should be an all-out assault on your 10K PR if you're running 6 miles or trying to get a 5K PR every Monday, because then you can fall into the trap of overexerting yourself on each run so that you're not able to recover and do hard structured workouts. But if we run in that steady range, so just for example, maybe getting your heart rate up to 160, 170, or effort about 6 to 7 out of 10, another good way to think about it is running as fast as you can without having to slow down in the second half and feeling like you could have run faster at the end of the run. So that's a way to think about steady or zone 3 running. So that can be super beneficial for building fitness without running a ton of mileage, because you're increasing the intensity, you're increasing the stress on your body without, if you implement this correctly, putting yourself in too much risk of injury. So through this approach, for me, I was able to run sub 40 in the 10K with only, I think, about 30 miles per week, because I was introducing this higher intensity running into 2 or 3 runs per week. Now, the second key point that I want to highlight here, which goes really nicely with the first about intensity, is we have to be consistent, and consistency is the best thing, no matter your mileage level, that you can do to improve your training. So if you're running 40, 50, maybe even 20 or 30 miles per week, you're probably not going to be running every day, and that's completely fine. Even elite athletes who run 120 miles per week, a lot of them take Sundays off. So you don't have to run every day, but you should be running every week. And for me, that type of consistency is what allowed me to consistently progress in my race performances. And so I used to use Nike's Run Club app, and I remember at one point I had a 52 plus week consistency streak. And so being able to go out there and execute every week is going to consistently improve your aerobic base, so that if you are going out there and trying to push the pace and run a little bit faster than just an easy jog, you have that aerobic development, you have the fitness built up, so you can sustain a little bit of a harder effort. It's really all about prioritization, and I realize it can be hard for some of us to make time every single day to run, but if you can carve out 3 or 4 days per week dedicated to running, that's going to give you a really solid foundation to work from, so that when you do want to transition into really tackling a big race block and getting your PR down, you're not starting from scratch, and so you have a base to build from. And there's a saying I love, right? Stay ready so you don't need to get ready, and that's what having consistency over every single month of the year is going to do. You're not going to have to take steps back when you take a full month off of training. You can retain maybe 90% of your peak fitness throughout the entire year, and then get a little bit of boost toward the last 8 weeks when you're really giving the gas on those hard workouts. Now, within this consistency framework, right, and I mentioned this in my half marathon training video, we're going to also have to implement some structured workouts at least once per week. And when I was training 30, 40 miles per week, I wasn't doing mile repeats with 2 minutes jogging. I wasn't going to the track and doing 800s. I didn't start any of that until my first marathon build, and I broke 90 minutes in the half marathon just by at least once or twice a week going out there and running a hard effort. And if you're not doing super high mileage levels and you haven't plateaued a ton in your training, you can just run these time trials maybe once a week where it's not 100% all out effort, but maybe go 90% effort for a 7-mile run if you're training for the half marathon. Doing that once a week is a great way to add a little bit of extra stress on your body without overcomplicating things. And at these lower mileage levels, we don't need to introduce super complicated workouts to get adaptations, especially if you haven't been running for a long time. So if you look at what's offered in an elite training program like Jack Daniel's marathon plan, which I've been looking at a lot recently, it is very complex. There's multiple pace changes throughout the workout, and it really challenges you with mentally and physically to execute on that workout. So that's a great way to approach training once you've gotten all of the benefits that you can by training in this more simple way. But when we're newer runners, for me specifically, I didn't need to do a whole lot of complicated pace switches and repeats to get faster. As long as I was running hard a few times per week, that did the trick for me. And as I like to say, the body remembers effort and not pace. So as long as you're giving it a good effort and you can feel your body, you're not doing too much, you're not getting in that injury zone, then go out there and run hard and you will make gains. Now, the third thing that really helped me make breakthroughs and stay consistent and be able to add intensity into my runs without getting injured is strength. Now, I don't really go to the gym very much at all anymore. Now that I'm running higher mileage, I prioritize my time because it's better spent running as many aerobic miles as possible and doing a little bit of strength work when I'm not training at these peaks. However, when I was training at these lower mileage levels, and specifically when I was way newer to running, maintaining that strength work was a great way to increase the stimulus that I could put on my body each week without taking it too far with running. So if you're newer to running, you shouldn't just jump into 60, 70 miles per week, but adding in some other types of exercise, and for me that was body weight hit workouts, that was the biggest thing I did, was key to consistently building strength and consistently adding some intensity. I absolutely love body weight workouts because they're simple, they don't take a ton of time, and if you are pressed for time, if you're working 12-hour shifts as a nurse, for example, which is what one of the guys who was asking me about this said, then it's going to be a lot easier for you to do a 10 to 15 minute body weight workout in the morning than it's going to be to carve out time to go to the gym, drive, shower, etc. So I'll dig up the Nike Training Club workouts that I used to do and I'll put links to them below, but it's really simple stuff. It doesn't require any sort of gear, but it's just another way to help strengthen your body so that you can be prepared to go out there and run some intensity. The other benefit of it is that it's going to get your heart rate up a little bit more, give you another extra little stimulus, which can help improve your runs. All right, guys, now the fourth strategy here that is super key, and this is probably, other than the efficiency that I wanted you to take away, this is another big takeaway, is the long run. Now, no matter what your mileage level is, you need to be doing one long run a week, and ideally, if you're targeting the half marathon, that should be a 10-mile long run. So for me, when I was training at those lower levels, I always made sure when I knew I wanted to take another chunk off my half marathon time that I built up that long run to at least 10, 11, 12 miles, and that I was able to run it at that steadier zone 3 pace range. Again, that range that's comfortably hard, but it feels like we can be steady paced throughout the whole thing. We don't need to slow down at the end. So the long run has a ton of benefits, and it's the biggest thing that you can do to improve your running for any aerobic distance. And if you're not able to run high mileage, the long run is basically the best next thing that you can do, because a lot of the benefits that we get from running high mileage, it's kind of stuffed into that long run, and it's a tidier package that's still giving us some of those same things. So for me, at lower mileage levels, I saw the most improvement when I moved my long run length up from 7 miles to 10 miles. So if you are only running about an hour, if you can bump it up to hour 20, hour 30, ideally 2 hours for that long run, but at least running 90 minutes per week, that's going to be the sweet spot for getting some more fitness. And I said this in my half marathon video I did, but a good way to think about it is if you're running only a 7-mile long run per week, it's going to be a pretty good effort for you to do a 4 or 5 mile tempo. However, if you're running a 10 to 12 mile long run per week, that 4 to 5 mile tempo is going to be a lot easier for you to execute on because you've built up that fitness over a longer distance. So in my training right now, I've built up my long run to 22 miles, and just yesterday I did 16 miles at marathon pace. Now, last summer I was only doing 16-mile long runs, and I would have never attempted to do that whole thing at a marathon pace. I would only probably go 10 to 12 miles at a marathon pace. So the longer that you can run on the weekends, the harder that you're going to be able to run for longer during the week, which is then going to improve your race times. All right, guys, the last thing that I wanted to hit on here is recovery. And the biggest tip that I have for recovery, especially at these lower mileage levels, is to be super conscious of what you put in your body. Now, one of the main things that I did to improve my running when I was running at a lower mileage level and I didn't have a ton of time was to cut out alcohol. Now, I have nothing against alcohol. I have nothing against drinking. There's a time and a place for partying. But when we're thinking about running and when we're thinking about the effects of what we put on our body and the unnecessary stress on our body, alcohol is one of those things where if we want to improve our fitness, it's going to make it just a little bit harder to run the next day. It's going to delay our recovery a little bit more. It's going to make our sleep a little bit worse. So you don't necessarily need to cut it out, but I think being mindful of how much you are drinking before long runs and how that's affecting your sleep can be key to making sure that you can execute those runs at the appropriate intensity to build fitness. And with that, of course, goes sleep. Now, if you can't run a ton of high mileage, it's likely because you have a super busy life. So being able to sleep at least 6.5, 7 hours per night. I know they say shoot for 8, but you guys all know that's not actually possible if you're an adult most of the time with responsibilities, job, kids. So shooting for 6 hours at least. I try not to dip below 6 more than 2 or 3 nights in a row. And now that I got this Koros, I've been trying to make sure that my weekly average is above 7. So that's gonna be another huge thing, right? Making sure that you're recovering well so that you can run at a higher intensity than just a jog. Otherwise, you're going to be running most of your runs for the week if you're tired at that jog, and that won't let you squeeze the most benefit out of the condensed runs that you are doing. So to put all of these 5 together, the way that I would approach a training plan implementing some of these things is to make sure we get 1 weekly long run in, to have enough recovery in the week so that we can do at least 2 harder runs during the week. And like I mentioned, we don't need to be doing any complicated structured workouts with 6x800, 12x400, whatever it is. We can do a 6-mile time trial where we're going at a 90% effort, or a nice progression run where we start at a jog and speed up gradually through the run and end at a faster pace. But being able to do that at least once a week, ideally twice per week, is going to be great for increasing our fitness. And then having 1 or 2 other jogs throughout the week and whatever else mileage we can get at that steadier zone, which is comfortably hard. The key thing, of course, to all this is monitoring our bodies so that we do not not get injured and we can stay consistent, building up those 52-week streaks where every single week we've gone on a run. And that's how I look at it, guys. I don't do run streaks personally. I take a day off whenever I feel like I need it. But if you look at my last, I don't know, maybe 5 years, I've probably run every single week over that period. So looking at what can we do to set ourselves up for success, to be able to run every week, to increase our long run distance every week, and to stay healthy, that's going to be the key to racing faster and improving our running at a lower mileage level. And then with whatever else time we have left, staying consistent with some other strength workouts during the week, that's gonna be super key too, to just get a little bit more intensity than we can from running alone. I forgot to mention this earlier, but I actually did this one abs workout on the Nike training app every single day. Didn't miss any days for, I don't know, 2 years. Charli can comment how long I did it for, but that's why I now do this YouTube every day. I built up over time these habits that I can then execute on every single day. So I'm not advocating for you to need to do anything every single day, but if we can be consistent with the running every week and we can recover well and introduce some strength workouts here and there, that's going to set us up well for consistency over the long term, which is the key thing that helps us race faster. All right, guys, so those are my 5 strategies on how we can race faster without running high mileage. Let me know all of your questions below. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll be back tomorrow with another video.